All right, cool. Hello, everyone. This is the inaugural episode of the Real Talk podcast. We're probably going to change that name. We see a lot of people have copied us from several years ago. Technically, to our more dedicated listeners, this is episode 3. We had initially aired 2 episodes on my YouTube channel. This was nearly 5 years ago. Since then, we have buckled down and began what one would call our Sigma grind set of sorts.
Yep,
And,
we dialed
and finally, yeah, of course. And finally, I believe that we're ready to emerge from the shadows. And so without further ado, please enjoy this episode of whatever we call this podcast. All right, so the King Plunder is here with me. He's going to be my co-host as usual.
Hey,
so,
everyone.
How's it going? What is new in your life?
It's good, man. I used to go by a different name. The real fans of this podcast will know who I really am. But, now I go as the King Plunder. I own a lot of things, physical and mental things. Now I'm more knowledgeable. I'm a grad student. I read textbooks and I jump rope.
Of course.
That's pretty much what's new with me. How have you been, Cornelius?
It's been a similar journey for me, as you know. Some of our listeners, maybe they've been following me on the social medias, as they say. You see, when we first started that podcast, we were both filthy undergrads, right? We knew nothing. And now we are what one would call experts. We're leading academia in our respective fields, right? And people often ask me on the street, they say, Cornelius, I've seen your progression as a person, right? And I want to know how I can Sigma grind like you have and get into grad school. And I tell them straight up, all right? First, you got to go to the library and you got to read every textbook in the library, right? Have you seen Good Will Hunting?
I've seen Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. So Will in that movie, he reads every book, right? And he knows all. He knows all the information. Well, to be a grad student, you need to know more than the information in the library, right?
Exactly. That brings up such a good point. I remember when I was an undergrad, I would spend hours upon hours at the library just reading every single book in there. And it got to a point where I knew more than what the library had to offer. And so what was the natural next step? It was for me to apply to grad school so I can learn more off of graduate level textbooks. Is that kind of what you experienced too?
100%, King Plunder, 100%, right? So what I found was that when I was completing my degree in mathematics, I don't mean to brag a little bit, but that is pretty high level stuff.
That is, that's high. That's high.
What happened was I started to realize, there's not that many books in most libraries on upper level subjects.
Yep.
And I started to realize, if I wanted to learn knot theory, right? Tying your shoes is a very mathematical concept. And I wanted to tie my shoes in a way where people would know, this guy has an IQ of probably 170.
He knows. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what happened is I started applying to grad school. And I applied to PhD programs in STEM fields, specifically economics, right? And what happened was now I read books and textbooks that libraries don't carry, right?
Yep.
Normal libraries don't have these books. Anthony Fauci, you may have not heard of him. Not everyone knows who this man is, but he
saved us. He saved us.
He saved us from a horrible death, all of us. And he wrote a textbook, right? And it's on immunology, if I'm not mistaken, or something of the sort.
That's absolutely correct. As a medical student, as a graduate, medical student at a medical school, a lot of our textbooks are written by Dr. Anthony Fauci, because he knows, he has that experience. And I just want to reiterate what you were saying, that it's a different feeling when you get to read and learn off of textbooks that the common public just cannot get. And that's something that you can only achieve in graduate school. And it's sort of a magnetic kind of experience, because once you start reading those textbooks, people take notice. You walk into a room, people look at you.
Heads
They
turn.
wonder. Heads turn, yeah. They know, like, this man, this guy, he knows his stuff. Why? Because he reads textbooks. It's just that simple.
It is really that simple. And some people are hearing us talk about, graduate school, and they want to include themselves, in that group, right? You already know there's some MBAs listening right now who think we're graduate students too,
No,
right? And
no.
you're not. You're just not, all right?
They can't be. They can't be because they don't do proper research. They don't read textbooks. They go to MBA school just to purely network. They are not real graduate students, in my humble opinion.
The average MBA student has an IQ of what, 87? It's not very high. I know that.
I think that's right. According to my textbooks, I think that's right.
Yeah. And you are in the medical profession, so you know this stuff.
So
right?
I know these things. Yeah.
So these so-called graduate MBA programs, what they are is it's adult daycare, right?
Yep.
And people have been talking about this program. It's called ChatGPT. Allegedly, it passed the MBA exam from Harvard or something of the sort. And I just want to say, right, I could train a 4-year-old to pass that test. It's not very difficult, right? And if your barrier for artificial intelligence is passing the MBA exam, then there's going to be a lot of chimpanzees that are considered very highly intelligent in this world.
That just says a lot. Like, that really just speaks volumes to me. But I want to bring it back to ChatGPT. As I'm busy studying all these diseases and things, I've been hearing a lot about ChatGPT, particularly in its potential of stealing a doctor's job. What do you think of that?
Well, I have heard that it passed the medical board exams.
Yeah, the USMLE tests.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, a doctor is a lot more than just someone who's intelligent, right? A doctor is someone like Anthony Fauci, right? He's a hero. He's
a bastion for the modern world. That's what
he's a man you look. He's a man you talk to your son to, and you point at him on Google Images, and you say that is who you want to be when you grow older, right?
Exactly.
And can I point to ChatGPT and tell my son that he should be, a text on a screen? I don't think so.
No, because the AI is without a figure, and as humans, and this is what I learned from my textbooks. As humans, we look up to other people, not other things. We can't look at robots. We can't look at dogs. We can't look at cats. We find our role models in actual human beings. So, and Anthony Fauci, like, pun intended, he is the textbook role model.
He is. He really is, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I haven't read any of his books, but I've seen the way he's, led this country the last few years, right? And we had a horrible pandemic when we weren't podcasting, where several people died. And did ChatGPT help in any of that? Right?
No.
It came around at the end, right? It came around just to steal the credit right at the end.
Exactly. And I think that's something that people in the future have to kind of remember. It isn't the robots who are executing these mindful and complex tasks like Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Filthy bots.
ChatGPT is just following instructions. What we need in the world is people who will sort of rip apart the instruction sheet and make the world what they want it to be. Of
course. And, speaking of Anthony Fauci, right? I was reading some articles about him late at night, when I was feeling a little romantic.
Yeah.
And what happened was I found out that he's quite old. He's around 70 or something. And he actually used to run daily almost And during the pandemic, he said he would go for longer walks instead of running. And, something that really struck me when I read that was about, your mind and your body. They're
Yeah.
linked, right?
Absolutely.
You have to put your body through tremendous amounts of stress in order to develop it. You have to jump rope. You have to do things like that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. No, I was just going to bring that up because, and I think this is something that people miss unless they are a graduate student. When you're really pushing yourself to intellectually grow, that's when you realize, maybe I should go out running. For me, it was jumping rope. Every single morning, I go jump rope for an hour, and I can't tell you how much better in kind of all metrics my life has become.
Of course. And no pun intended, a metric space you would learn about in real analysis. Anyway.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And people think grad students don't know things, right? Speaking of jumping rope, I have also been jumping rope a lot. And you can tell, right? Two high-level individuals who talk with such, who speak with such intelligence on this podcast, that's what the listeners are thinking. Of course they jump rope, right? And they're starting to piece together the puzzle, right?
Exactly.
They're hearing two high-level individuals talk about how they jump rope, read textbooks, praise Anthony Fauci, and they're starting to realize these are the three things you need to do daily to succeed.
It's those people who worship ChatGPT who are beginning to realize that this is really algorithmic. If you start jumping rope, just like you said, if you start reading textbooks, if you start worshiping people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, you can have these conversations. People will start listening, people will take notice, and you'll achieve that grad student status.
Of course, 100%, right? And speaking of jumping rope, right? So I want to go into detail about my journey with jumping rope, right? So
sure.
I like to jump rope pretty much daily. I like to do around 8 to 12 rounds per day. That's 3-minute boxing rounds, of course. Yep. And something I realize is how much your mentality goes into success, right? So I was jumping rope one day, and my right foot just snapped in half, right? And my bone was just broken, right? But I kept going, right? I kept going, and I pushed through, and my body realized this guy isn't messing around.
He's a grad student. That's what he is.
My body knew that I was a grad student at that moment, right? And it healed itself
Healed
immediately.
it. Exactly. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Once you become a grad student, the conversation changes.
The conversation really does change when you start putting your mentality at the level that a grad student has it, right? So I realize, when I walk around in public, right, people start to notice me, right? People look at me and they know something, right? They know that I know something, and it makes them think, how can I get on his level? And just by me being a highly successful individual as I am, people are starting to want to be like me. And I think I'm doing almost charity at this point, right?
Yeah, you're letting them know that they have a sort of untapped potential within them. And that, to me, is heroic. It's heroic. That's what it is.
It really is. It really is. And who else is heroic?
Dr. Anthony Fauci. Exactly.
And our brains are on the same wavelength
because we're graduate students.
Exactly. People don't know this, but when your IQs match and they're very high, you start synchronizing sometimes.
That's so true, Cornelius. That's incredible.
It's very true.
Good observation.
It's very true. So, have you been playing any video games lately?
As a graduate student, it's important to maintain balance in your life. And of course, I'm reading textbooks, I'm jumping rope. But on my off time, I'm playing games that stretch the bounds of my limits. And one of those games is called Elden Ring. Now,
yeah.
there's a lot of naysayers who are probably listening,
Probably
who
future MBA students, right?
yeah, MBA students who probably think of Elden Ring and shudder because they are so used to consuming video games in which they are the most powerful character who can destroy anyone in their path. Now, the reason I, a graduate student, the reason why I like Elden Ring is because it pushes you to your limits. It isn't a game where you're fighting bosses or demons. It's a game where you're fighting yourself, and I find that beautiful.
That is very true. Me personally, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is, so what I do when I do some math homework, right? Or people in the field, we call it mathserbating, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
when I'm mathserbating, right, what happens is I'm working on a problem set. I set a Pomodoro timer. It's Japanese for timer. And
Absolutely.
what happens is when I have my breaks, I switch on to Elden Ring on my other monitor, and I start grinding, right? And people think, oh, you're relaxing, you're taking a break, right? But no,
No,
I'm not.
no.
I'm not.
Yeah.
My fingers are getting a workout. My brain is getting a workout.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in my body is training at that moment, right?
Yes.
When I get killed by, one of these bosses, one of these random guys on the streets, I'm picking up patterns. I'm learning things, right? And I can
You're
apply
observing.
these things to real life, right?
And that's the Elden Ring is a microcosm of real life, especially as a graduate student.
It is.
Elden Ring is like graduate school. It's difficult. It's something that you have to keep on going
You
and then
fail, you
fighting.
try again. You fail, you
Exactly.
try again.
And MBAs, they're not used to that. They're used to being
They're
fed
not.
things on a silver platter.
You all know what MBAs do, right? They network, right? So what is networking in Elden Ring? It's using summons.
Oh,
like a fraud.
That's true because they're using other people to do the work for them. That's a great analogy. I have to give it to you for that one.
Yeah, I did take an online IQ test and it said I was very intelligent. So
incredible.
So, have you been playing any other games? I've heard there's a game called Dead Space that came out. I've been seeing it on the EA app.
So I recently downloaded that. Huge Dead Space fan. I never actually played it. When it first came out, I think I watched PewDiePie play it, and I remember being so scared of that game. And I've always wanted to play it. And the fact that they made this remake, I think, was perfect for me. I downloaded it, and it is one of the most astonishing remakes ever made. I think it's on the level of the Resident Evil remake.
Oh wow!
And it's interesting because it's of course it's made by EA, who has in history been called out for its monetizations. It's very
a lot of microtransactions. Yeah,
and in Dead Space there are none. So I'm interested. I'm interested in the inner workings of EA with their single player games because they made It Takes Two the other year, that one game of the year.
Fallen Order too, right?
Fallen Order, yeah. I think EA this decade, they're on the come up. We should let them cook.
We should indeed let them cook, and I'm right next to New Mexico, so that really rings true to me. Yeah. So, do you play Dead Space on Xbox or do you play it on PC, or how do you do?
I'm playing on an Xbox. I only have my Mac over here. Specifically, the Mac is used just for textbooks. But on my Xbox Series X, I have a bunch of other games. Game Pass, a wonderful kind of opportunities to play games, indie games. The next game I want to...
They give you EA Play with Game Pass, or is that
yes,
not?
Yes,
okay.
They give you EA Play. So you can play all of the Battlefield games. The next game I'm trying to play is Hi-Fi Rush. I hear that's a really good game that was just shadow dropped. The art style looks awesome. But then again, it's really, like I said, a balance between reading textbooks and playing video games and in grad school.
Yeah, and jumping rope, of course.
Yep, exactly.
And if you play video games, you read textbooks, you jump rope, you praise Anthony Fauci every night and every morning,
You'll be like us.
You will become something, right?
Yeah, people will take notice. Yeah,
people will take notice. People will take notice, and you have to do that if you want to be something in life. You know, it's a very simple formula. It's very simple.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about just in general. Take me through your day, right? What do you usually do when you wake up? When you go to sleep?
Sure.
In between that time, tell me what goes on in your life.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that. I want to hear your schedule after, because I know you have a very, very sort of strict schedule that you pay attention to, and it's something that I've taken inspiration for myself. So when it comes to my schedule, of course, I'm waking up early. Any grad student, you should be waking up early, and early to me is around 6 or 5. When you wake up immediately, I'm eating breakfast. That for me, that's oranges, yogurt, probiotic for your colon, things that are just really good for you. And after that, it's just straight to the textbooks. I'm reading textbooks day in, day out. I don't even go to class anymore because it would infringe on the time that I have for my textbook. Of course, middle of the day, I'll eat lunch. I've been eating a salad every day. Salads are very important for you. Most of Americans today suffer from constipation because they don't get enough fiber. So you can find your fiber in salads or fruits with skins, so like apples and things like that. Afternoon, I'm reading the textbook again, going over lecture slides. And then, now it's about, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. I go straight to the gym, jump rope for an hour straight, get back home, do some final textbook reading, and then go to sleep at around 10 p.m. if I'm not playing video games, at least.
Wow. I think your schedule will impress a lot of people, and it'll guide them on the right path moving forward.
Exactly. Tell us about your schedule.
Oh, yeah, of course. So for me, it kind of differs day to day. I'll give a general approximation. That's a math term, by the way, if you don't know. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do is I like to wake up quite early, right? Because if you wake up early, no one else is awake, and you're already beating them at the day, right? You're already ahead, right? Part of being an alpha, sigma, whichever one of the positive male characteristics you want to be, is beating other people at life. And that's what I want to do. And so I like to wake up actually at around 4:30, 4:45 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something I practice daily, including on weekends. I don't like to let that slip, right? Because it's a practice in discipline, right?
Yeah.
So I wake up at 4:30, 4:45 a.m. I might press snooze once or twice so that it gets to 4:45 instead,
Yeah.
And then what happens after that is I wake up, I start pacing the room immediately, right?
Wow.
Because my brain, it starts firing on all cylinders immediately. When you have an IQ as high as I do, right? Your brain wants to
working
function.
harder.
It's working all day, right?
Yeah.
So when I wake up, my brain's like, "Why was I asleep?" Right? I want to grind all day.
Let's get to work. Let's get to work
right now. So I start pacing the room for a couple minutes. Usually 10 to 20 minutes. I get 2,000 steps in that way.
Yep.
And then what I do after that is I take a shower, usually around 5:30ish, and
really,
then
I don't take showers anymore.
You
that
don't?
wasn't in my schedule. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's something that I've thought about, and I think I want to add it back into my schedule. But it's give or take, because with the textbook and then the jump rope, it's tough.
It is tough, right? Especially if you're jumping rope, all that sweat. It's basically liquid cleaning you off anyway,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you go on.
No. That's a completely valid point. I think people should note that there is variance among high performing
Yeah.
individuals in their schedules, right?
Yeah,
And you saw
exactly.
it right there. And so, where was I? So I take a shower, usually around 5:30 a.m. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
do brush my teeth. I'm definitely omitting some variables here, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
the normal hygiene, I take care of it early in the day. And then I like to head to the gym at 6 a.m. I do this 4 days a week. I'm on an upper
Wow.
lower split.
Yeah.
So I'll be there tomorrow. And I train for around 2 hours, you know? So not all of that is weightlifting, right? So
Yeah.
I usually do a lift for about 5 sets with two minutes of rest in between each set, and then I do um, that for around, let's say, an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
After
Yeah.
that, I like to get on the treadmill and I like to do a high incline power walk for the
Wow.
rest of the time, like 45 minutes.
That's healthy for you, man.
Exactly. And it should be noted, I did the 20 minutes of walking in the morning. So what happens is I already
Yeah.
have
Adds up.
6,500 steps and it's
Yeah.
8 a.m., right? Which is quite great.
And the best part about that is people are just starting to wake up. And when I say people, I mean MBAs or
Oh,
non-graduate students.
of course.
You know?
Have you
Yeah.
seen the average MBA schedule, even at Harvard? It's at night.
Diabolical.
They go to class
Yeah.
at night because they quote unquote work, right? I mean, I don't know what they're doing at work.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
what are they even doing? No one really knows.
they're going to happy hour and they're having some drinks. That's what they're doing, all right?
Yeah. I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'm already beating them at their day, right? I already have I have more steps at 8 a.m. than the average American does in their entire day. Let that be noted. And there's no exaggeration here. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what happens after that is, depending on the day, I'll have, you know, some time, or I might have to head to lecture. So on days when I have some time, I get home, I, you know, have a protein shake. I like the quick sponsor, not a real one, but someone who should sponsor us. My Protein. I like your lemonade protein shake. It's quite great.
Protein shake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pure protein. It's 90 I think it's 80 calories actually, and 20 grams of protein, which is 4 grams per gram. I know it's 4 calories per gram of protein. It's 80 calories, which is already like basically 100% protein.
Yeah, I need to get on that.
Yeah, it is quite good. And the only issue is it does foam up for a little bit, but you just wait. I don't think it's a real problem. But anyway, they should sponsor us after that.
Absolutely,
great endorsement. So I have that after my workout. You know, bodybuilding.com forum stuff about like the anabolic window. Right? That stuff has been debunked in a lot of medical meta-analyses.
Yep.
But it does help to get protein early in the morning, right? Because as you noted, I didn't eat earlier
That's
today.
true. That's true.
I went straight to the gym, and I already have 6,500 steps. And it's not because, you know, I'm not sure about the academic literature around training fasted, right? I'm not sure if it burns fat. Maybe your glycogen stores are empty or something of the sort, and now you're burning more fat.
Yeah.
The reason I like to do it is because back in the old days, you know, back when we were basically chimps, right? What would happen is when you don't eat, you become sharp because you need to hunt, right?
Yeah.
And I, as a grad student, I hunt knowledge.
Exactly. That's what we do. We hunt knowledge.
Yeah, and if I remain fasted for quite a long time, what happens is I start to, you know, notice things that other people don't notice. I start to feel things. I feel the molecules in the air. I feel, you know, I can hear, you know, a baby crying 3 miles away. I can hear,
It's evolutionary. I mean, when you know our ancestors were hungry, they had to do whatever they could to get food, and whatever they could do is whatever was they could do best, right? So that's when they would need to hunt. That's when they would need to forage, and that's when they would need to be hearing a baby cry from miles away. That's exactly right.
Exactly, you know, or maybe hearing a wild animal that they're gonna kill and eat later in the day.
Yeah,
right.
It's facts.
My wild animal, right? So is that protein shake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just walked 6,500 steps. I did a whole lifting workout. I
Mm-hmm.
basically, humans used to hunt because of our cardio. We used to walk miles and miles just to chase down a mammoth and kill it with its own tusk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is I walked 6,500 steps. I lifted a lot just so I can kill that protein shake. That's what I just did.
That's exactly what it is, and it's my protein. Again, not sponsored, but my protein. We kill your shakes.
Yeah, my protein, please sponsor us because I genuinely drink that every single day. I like the lemonade one the best. You got a lot of flavors. I love
Mm-hmm.
lemonade. I used to drink lemonade all the time. A lot of sodium in there. I definitely did stop that after a while.
Yep.
But my protein, I think it has 0% sodium. Last I checked,
Oh
and
wow.
it is pure protein. It foams up. You just wait like 50. It says 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But on the website it says 1 minute. I find 1 minute to be more accurate.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just let it sit for a little bit while you do some math homework, and then suddenly you have 20 grams of pure ancestral protein in your body, right?
Yeah, and that ultimately helps you be a graduate student because you burn that protein reading textbooks.
Of course, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
after that, right, depending on the day, I might go to lecture, and then that
Yep.
lasts until like 12:15 p.m. Um, and I do in fact go to lecture. The
Mm-hmm.
main reason is that class sizes in PhD program very small. They're like
Yeah.
between 5 to 10 people.
So they'll
Typically,
know if you're not there.
exactly. They'll know you're not there, and life is
Yeah,
a signaling game, right? If you take
it
in game
really is.
theory, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens after that? I go to lecture. I take notes. I try and learn. I try and learn
Mm-hmm.
a lot. If it's a non-lecture day, what I do is I typically just work. If it's a non-lifting day, I'm working immediately, right? I'm on the
Mm-hmm.
grind for like
Yep.
4 hours at least, right? And
Yeah.
then what happens is it's around midday, around noon. Typically, I like to eat some lunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have some healthy meals. I like to change it up day to day, but I like to have beans. I like to have some vegetables. I always have an apple and a banana, both.
Great.
Um, I also drink a lot of water. I might have
Yep.
another My Protein shake. Shout out My Protein. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, I might make some sandwich. Get some protein from the whole wheat. I like to have whole wheat bread, not white bread. I've heard that it uh it, I've heard it's lower in the glycemic index, so it's better for
Yep.
your
It is, and
blood
it
sugar response.
lower risk for diabetes. All in all, anything that's lower in the glycemic index is overall better for you in terms of energy, um, lifespan, and overall, I think, in my opinion, taste. I think whole grain, once you get used to it, it's a lot better tasting than white bread.
I really do agree, right? Like if you have
Yeah.
like a refined pasta, right? A refined
Yeah.
wheat pasta, what
Mm-hmm.
what happens is it might go down a little bit easier, but if you're gonna sit down after that, you're gonna be burning your glycogen stores for quite a long time, right?
Really, yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
And that's quick energy. You want to burn that off. If we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have some if we're gonna have some refined grains, not a lot of fiber, a lot of you're probably gonna spike your insulin. You probably want to go hop on a treadmill, go for a walk for like 30 or so minutes so you can get that
Yeah,
down a little bit.
yeah, that's absolutely correct. But a lot of people are way too busy to even do that. So why even go through the process when you could just have whole wheat grains?
Yeah, yeah. 100%, right? And as I mentioned earlier, kind of in passing, whole grains have a lot more fiber than
Mm-hmm.
refined grains, right? And you were
Yep.
talking about fiber earlier, and it's really necessary.
And that's just crazy to me that both of our lives, us being graduate students, our schedules are pretty different, but we both sort of funneled into this idea of fiber, and I think
Exactly.
that's that's just telling of what a graduate student needs in their life. They need fiber.
They do. They 100% do. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of fiber, right? So fiber affects, your bowel movements quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, tremendous bowel movements. They're
Yep.
very healthy, very strong bowel
Yep.
movements.
Good.
And and something I've noticed when I use public restrooms, people forget to flush, and I observe, right? I'm a man who likes
Yep.
to take in knowledge. I like to
Yeah.
notice what's around me, the type of people I live in, the community I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And
And they're not up to par with yours.
oh
I can
yeah,
already tell.
they the feces I see in these public restrooms, it's nothing, right? It's
Yeah.
liquidy, it's loose,
Foul.
it's foul, right? And
Yeah.
you look at mine, right? And it's a snake. It's a
Yeah.
snake. It's a hardened snake, and it's great. It's
Yeah, and
strong.
I'll tell you, in medical school, we learn a lot about this stuff. We actually spent a whole week purely looking at different forms of feces. The way
Wow.
that we would do that is we would actually leave lecture, and this was during the time when I was a new graduate. I was, kind of nervous, so I would actually be going to lectures. I didn't have access to textbooks, but part of our program was to go into the bathrooms and observe, the everyday man's sort of bowel movements.
Oh yeah.
And we took notes, we graded them, and it's really telling what you can see in a person through their feces.
Yeah. 100% right. I often tell people, right? A lot of people come to me for advice when they notice, that my IQ is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me, right? They're like, "How do I know I found the one?" Right? How do I know I
Yeah,
found my wife, my husband of sorts? Right?
yeah,
And what I tell them is, don't tie the knot until you see their poop. Right?
yep,
Because
100%.
it tells you a lot about their health, if they're going to live long, their
Mm-hmm.
longevity, right? If they're taking care of themselves. If they
Yep.
can't take care of themselves, they're going to take care of you. Are they going to take care of your kids, right? Your offspring? I don't
Mm-hmm.
think so. I really don't think so. Yeah. Anyway, so after I eat lunch around noon, on weekends I might do a little bit earlier, maybe 11:30. On lecture days I might do at 1 p.m. But it's around that vicinity. It's in the neighborhood. Another
Yep.
real analysis term for all you math nerds out there. After that, I like to get straight to work. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
like to work on homework, study. Uh, learn new things, right? Get my mind right for grad school. Work on what
Mm-hmm.
matters, and that's my graduate level coursework, right? And I do this for several hours, depending on the day, usually around 4 to 5 hours. And after this, something that's very important, I call my mom. All right,
Mm.
I call my mom after I finish grinding, and I tell
Yeah.
her. I tell her what has gone on in my day every day. I tell her how my bowel movements went. I tell her what I
Mm.
ate. I tell her what I just did. She tells me about her things, right? And then after that,
Yep.
we hang up. And then after that, I like to cook and eat some dinner and probably, unwind for a little bit. I might text a
Yeah.
group chat
Yeah.
or two. I might go on GroupMe and try and get a couple GroupMe likes.
And
It's always good to get some GroupMe likes.
absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up because I think as graduate students, we're always stressed about how we're doing and in comparison to our cohort. Sometimes when it comes to unwinding, you really should practice GroupMe etiquette. Once you get into that chat and once you start building up the likes, life looks a lot different for you. What used to be a banana, for example, could turn into a picture that would net you maybe 2 or 3 GroupMe likes, and that really is an indication of your self-worth. So I think it's a beautiful point that you brought up.
That is very true. That's
Yeah.
very true indeed. And something that I'll tell, my undergrads who I teach, as a graduate student,
Mm-hmm.
I tell them if you're in these academic group chats, right, you should really be taking advantage of these
Yeah.
group me chats, right? Because you will never get an easier like in your life if you're in an academic group
Exactly.
me chat.
Because when you leave the undergraduate space, the academic group chats, they sort of die off.
You vanish, of course.
And as graduate students, we of course still latch onto that. We latch onto those group chats because it's so easy just to manipulate these undergraduate students who haven't fully formed their frontal lobe and cheat them off of their GroupMe likes. And that's just what it is. It's a dog eat dog world. And if you don't like it, then, stop going into GroupMe chats.
Exactly. I mean, right before a test, right? I mean, one of the easiest ways, it's straight from the playbook, right?
I already know what you're going to say.
Exactly. You send a GIF of like a cat, a dog, or something, or something sweet, and you say something like, "Good luck on the exam. I hope you all kill it," right? And you get 26 likes.
20 likes plus.
It's
easy.
Insane.
It's just stupid at that point. And it's like...
It's breaking the system.
Yeah. It really is. It's like, what's that one character's name? Neo from the Matrix? That we're breaking the Matrix at that point.
We really are at that point, right? And the better you get at sending GroupMe likes, right? It really is a craft, right? People don't know that. I think it's just
theory.
Communication.
It's
theory. There's high level game theory, senders and receivers involved in getting GroupMe likes and sending quality messages, all right? And so what happens is the better you get at it, you start to realize, there's all these tricks in the book, right? There's fundamental theorems. Yeah, yep. There are fundamental theorems of GroupMe. There are fundamental theorems of group chats, how to get engagement, how to get likes, how to get people to react and respond. And what is, true mastery of communication, if not getting others to really take notice when you're talking, when you're speaking up there at the podium of your cell phone. Right?
Yeah. And so it becomes sorry to cut you off, but it's just so frustrating when you come across people who don't understand the theory or say that the theory completely just doesn't exist because it is there. They just can't see it for some reason.
Exactly. People always tell me they're like, applied maths is where it's at, right? Pure maths is nothing. And I say maths because it's mathematics. There's a plural at the end. Please don't say math. Is it mathematic? What are you doing? Right? Come on, stop it. Anyway, pure maths is really what GroupMe theorems are about, right? These are fundamental axioms that build, all the conversations you have, right? You might not even know you're engaging in it, right? Like people buy goods, people buy, shirts, they buy clothes. That's kind of the same thing, but I wanted to specify.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about being specific and throwing people off guard sometimes, right? And people buy food, people buy pants, right? What they're doing in that case, right, is in economics, they're contributing to consumption, right? And we can track consumption patterns. We have theories around consumption. You learn in Econ 101 and perfect competition, supply and demand holds. There are all these theorems, and those same theorems, not the same ones, of course, but similar theorems apply to communication in group chats, right? And people who scoff at this, they make a mockery of these fundamental axioms, these theorems. They don't know what they're talking about, right? They're going off the cuff. When they get likes, you can see patterns in the messages that get likes. You can really see that. And is that not a tell?
Yeah, and I feel like we go back to that example that you used of sending a cat or a gif of a cat before a test. It will always get you GroupMe likes, and one has to question, why is that? Is there something behind? Is there layers behind this?
And also for the people who are saying, oh, it's just simple variance that you're getting these likes. First of all, 20 likes is statistically significant. All right, take a stats class. Yeah. Also, I'd like to point out, right, if you go into these group chats, there are walls of text. People are communicating. They're talking about homework. They're talking about all sorts of things, right? The average message has like 0 likes?
0.
Like maybe 1.
Maybe 0.5.
Yeah. I think it averages below 0.5, probably like 0.3 maybe, right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
And what happens there is, in between these messages of just barren wasteland of likes, right? You see messages that suddenly have 8 likes, they have 7 likes, they have 10 likes. And you really want to look at these messages and be like, what just happened here, right?
Yeah.
Why did this message stand out? And when you start putting the pieces to the puzzle together, you really start to uncover, the laws of communication right there.
1 second.
Very impressive how you can tell how the world works just from a group chat, right? I mean, someone could send like, "Oh, I need help on this problem." Someone could respond, "Oh, this is the answer," right? And someone,
Yeah, but
would be like, "Oh, this class sucks." 10 likes immediately.
10 likes, and it's really those people who are pushing forth the edge of what we know about GroupMe like theory who get those GroupMe likes. It's people who are asking, "Oh, any plans for the day? Yes, I can pick you up. Yes, we can go here." 0 average GroupMe likes because they're not changing anything. There's nothing new about that.
They are consumers. They're not creators, right?
Exactly.
They're producing to the conversation economy, right? They're sending messages, and it's great, right? But they're not the ones creating jobs. They're not the ones getting engagement. They're not the ones, making things happen. And I should know, GroupMe likes aren't the only metric that matter, right? Of course, there are GroupMe assists to likes. There are messages. They might not get any likes, but they instigate, right? People respond. So and you send a message, and suddenly there's 46 different conversations going on right after you sent it, and you instigated that, but the others don't know.
And I actually, I have a great example for this. One of my friends, I think his name was Arthur. He actually sent a message in a chat talking about, I think it was MBAs, and that led to a social butterfly effect, where it led to conversations for the next 2 whole weeks. Now, he may have not gotten, a lot of likes on that, but we all knew that he instigated that conversation. And that's powerful. That's really powerful.
Right? Like, likes are engagement, but so are, conversations that stem from messages, right?
Yeah.
If you get 20 likes and no one sends anything after that, it's impressive, right? Don't get me wrong. But if you create something, you created a conversation, and then likes filter into those conversations, and those likes belong to you almost because you did that. You did that.
You're the catalyst to it all.
You are, you're almost,
You're like a god.
You're like a god. You're a father at that point. All these conversations, they came from you. They came from your seed, and you want to spread your seed as much as you can in these conversations.
I don't think you could have put it any better.
Well, when we're talking about communication, I have to, put things in the right way to demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. And you do, because you read textbooks. It comes full circle at that point.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, I read game theory textbooks, and I start thinking about how does this apply to that message I'm going to send today at 6 p.m. Right? How is this game that I'm studying, right? This sub-game perfect Nash equilibrium. How can I find a sub-game in this group chat that I can use backwards induction to find a Nash equilibrium for, right? That is impressive to me, and that's what I want to do, right? I want to send messages that create things, right? I'm a grad student, but I'm also, a person. I want to interact with people. I want to build relationships, and relationships are built on communication. That's what all the psychologists tell me, at least.
That's 100% true. And what better way to sort of quantify that exact concept than with GroupMe likes?
Exactly. Personally, I think going back to the academic group chats, I think there are certain messages that might get 1 or 2 likes, but if they're in, if they're sandwiched in between a bunch of messages that have no likes, that's still something, right?
That is something, and that's something that people should be proud of.
Exactly, right. Like, I often like to send a message in the morning. I send a GIF, right, or a GIF, whichever you prefer. I send a GIF of, let's say it's Monday morning. I'll send a GIF that says "Happy Monday. I hope you have a lovely day," and it's very elegant. It has beautiful colors, sparkles, everything.
Flowers, yeah.
Yeah, and I get, one or two likes, maybe 4 or 5, and that same day, that might be the most liked message of the entire day. And that's because people are waking up at, these late hours and they need motivation. We don't.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't, because we got that motivation from textbooks. But I want to bring it back to what we were talking about. So it seems to me that more of the likes that we're getting in these academic group chats, or even any other chat, they're coming from GIFs. Do you think there's a pattern with that?
There certainly is, right? I mean, they stand out, first of all. Right? Like, you see a bunch of text on the screen, and suddenly there's a big image moving around at you.
It catches your eye,
It catches your eye. I mean, you're like a predator back in the day. Back in the old days, you're seeing things move. You're seeing colors. You're seeing patterns. You're starting to want to interact with the GIF, right?
Yes.
When you really think about it, if someone says like a message like, all right, that's cool, I'll work on that, right? Nothing about that, is inspiring. You don't want to tap a like unless you're the exact person who is interacting with that person. Yeah. And then you see an image, right?
GIF.
Yeah, you see an image, you see a GIF. What happens there is you start noticing effort. You start noticing things that deviate from the norm.
And other people start taking part in that conversation.
Other people start taking part, like you might add a caption to your GIF, and suddenly it's like, oh wow, that's a message and a cool movie at once. Wow, that is impressive.
And it really is a sort of way to get easy likes. Really, in academic group chats, it's foolproof at that point.
It's probably like, if you're taking an applied group theory class, and they do offer these at the top schools around the world these days, probably the first thing you learn, and of course this is applied, so they're not going to teach you how these things work, which we know because we're experts and we're scholars and we're basically leaders in our field. But in an applied class, they're going to teach you these methods and they're going to teach you how to use them. You might not know the inner workings, and you don't need to. Not everyone has an IQ that high, but you want to know how to use these things in life. You want to get likes using them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cornelius. I think we went on a big tangent, but you were explaining your evening schedule.
Oh
We can get back
send
to
messages and I have thoughts like these about fundamental axioms of communication, of group theory, and around 6 p.m. is when I send most of my messages, right? Just before we started this conversation, I was chatting it up in a couple group chats, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was getting a lot of reactions, right? I was getting, people took notice. People were like, oh, you mentioned this hobby of yours. Tell me about it. That's impressive. People were interacting. I started, maybe a chain of like 6, 7, 8 different conversations after that,
You're a father at that point.
Exactly. I spread my seed at that point, And is that not the perfect way to end the day, right? Like sending a bunch of messages and just like...
The perfect way to end your day is particularly by spreading your seed. And
spreading your seed and seeing actionable results of things you did. It's very...
Things that come out de novo. And for my MBA students out there, de novo means from out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. They don't know that. They only speak the language of the person they're talking to, and in most cases, it's another dunce, right?
Yep.
Although I should mention, right, MBA students, I'm sure they're in a lot of group chats because they're networking, right? And some of them may have picked up these tactics and they don't know, what they're doing, but some of them might be applying them quite well. That's why you see people failing upwards, right? If you are an MBA student, your life isn't, let's be honest, your life isn't going in the right direction if you're in an MBA program, right? It's not, you don't go home and tell your mom you went to an MBA class. She'll be disappointed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So even if you're at Harvard, it's like, oh, you're in
You're a kindergarten at that point.
Are you going to daycare, man? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? You're a 32-year-old man and you're in a Harvard MBA school. Like, come on, man. Grow
You
up.
could do better than that, bro.
Way better. But some people do fail upwards in these cases, right? Like, there are people who did their graduate school at business schools. I mean, I shouldn't say graduate school, but that's what they call it because, you know, we hand out these participation trophies these days quite a lot. MBAs are a participation trophy, essentially. And a lot of those CEOs that run some of the major companies, Google, Microsoft, I think these guys have MBAs. And
really?
Yeah. But what I've noticed is these MBA holders, they know how to, you know, manage, but they don't know how to create, right? I mean, ChatGPT came out right underneath Google and Microsoft's noses. I mean, they were front runners in AI, and they just threw away their lead. And
that's true.
They're too busy managing. They're too busy, you know, playing these networking games, trying to make people pleased with their advertising changes, all these regulations of the internet. And what happened is all these high-level researchers, high-level machine learning PhDs, these computer science PhDs, they created this thing called ChatGPT, and it outsmarted them all.
That's incredible, and that's just like sort of physical, tangible evidence of who really runs the world.
Exactly. It really is, right? I mean, you look at some of the most impressive men in the world, and they have PhDs, or they have medical degrees, right? I mean, Dr. Anthony Fauci, I mean, if you love him or hate him, right? If you hate him, he ruined the entire world, and he put all these laws in your life that ruined your life, whatever you believe, right? In that case, you still believe he's a powerful man who has a lot of control over your life.
That's true. That's
exactly.
True. Love him or hate him,
and if
he had power.
Exactly. He had power. And why does he have power? Because he suffered for years through grad school. He read textbooks. He wrote textbooks.
Yeah.
He, I mean, back in the day, he wasn't in group chats, but he communicated with people. He networked his way to that position.
I'm willing to bet that if he was our age, he would be netting maybe 30 GroupMe likes a day.
Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean,
easy.
Honestly, even if you look at third-person accounts of Anthony Fauci's tweets, right? You see headlines of Anthony Fauci, engagement, unlimited engagement. People are mad. People are happy. People are calling him as their savior. People are saying he's the devil. Anthony Fauci is creating conversations. He's spreading his seed at this very moment.
You know, I've seen a movement. People are beginning to call him Father Fauci. And I think, like, why? He's spreading his seed. He's creating engagement. And I think that's sort of poetic at that point.
Exactly. I mean, whether or not people see you as good or evil, right? You know, the objective facts are that he is doing something that is...
He is doing something.
Very impressive, right? I mean, he's creating conversations. Like, right now, we're talking about him.
Yeah.
This conversation stemmed from him, right? Like, you're not going to create every conversation. Some conversations come to you, and this one came from the actions.
He definitely didn't text us. He didn't tell us, hey, I want you to talk about me. He did it because he's a graduate student, because he read textbooks. He knows.
Exactly. And also, let it be noted, Anthony Fauci, if you want to text me, you're completely free to do that, right? Don't be nervous. I will respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I mean, the only thing I have to say about my morning routine after that is I usually game a little bit at night. You know, I'm recording this podcast right now at night. I typically fall asleep around a little bit later today, but usually around, let's say, 8:30 p.m. just so I can wake up at 4:30.
That's a good sleep schedule.
Well, yeah. Although on Thursdays you can check me out. I'm not going to reveal my exact location due to anonymity purposes, but you can check me out at 8 p.m. around the city I'm located at a certain particular location.
Yeah, I think one of these days I'm going to make it out there. I'll check you out at that city.
Oh, yeah, and when I'm there, when I'm on stage, I'm communicating, I'm
Yeah.
creating. I mean, how many people do you think stole my jokes and told it to their wife afterwards? Right?
Yeah, that's innumerable at that point. And that's engagement right there.
It is.
That's
Even if
worth
it's not
40 GroupMe likes.
exactly, and even if it's not, even if it's not, they don't remember I said it. It's kind of subconscious. I still created that, right?
Yep.
I mean,
It's an idea. It's an idea.
Exactly. It's an idea, and the world is about ideas, right? And if you want to succeed, you have to win in the battlefield of ideas, and that's why we're pursuing scholarly degrees as we are.
Because we want to create ideas. We want to use ideas to propel us to make the world a better place. Exactly.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I think we got an hour in. It's quite good, I would say.
That was a incredible, compelling, beautiful conversation we had, Cornelius, and I can't wait for us to kind of get back to the grind and start talking about things that really matter.
Of course. I mean, I think we're going to have a lot of conversations just like this one, but I think this one really sets forward a path for us moving forward, right? People now know that we're graduate students. They know we're high-level individuals. They didn't know this back in the day when we were recording this podcast, right? And now what's starting to happen is people are going to tune in. They're going to want to hear these success tips that we have.
Yeah. We left a lot of gems in this conversation. To any listener who's listening to this, I would highly advise you to listen to it again on 0.5 times speed.
Exactly.
You'll get a lot from this.
Tell your friends, tell your family members, I want 50 unique listeners, so My Protein will sponsor us. That would be great. Another thing I would like to say is, first of all, I'd just like to thank everyone who's listening to this podcast, right? I might change the name. It used to be Real Talk Podcast. Just realized a lot of people stole that. We were the first, of course. But a lot of people stole that because we spread ideas. People steal ideas. That's how it works. There are leaders or followers, right? And moving forward, this podcast, it might be educational like this one. It might be more casual. We might talk, things that went on in our lives.
Yeah, I'd expect us to have a good few amount of guests, too. I know there is another new graduate student, actually, who's interested in speaking to us particularly about computer science.
Oh, yeah. And particularly about algorithms, right? He's very fond of algorithms.
He knows. Last I spoke to him, I think he knew at the top of his head 113 algorithms. Just at the top of his head, yeah.
I mean, that's almost more impressive than, your old philosophy friend who went to Whitman.
The Japanese philosophy.
And he used to recite quotes off the top of his head from Pinterest, right?
Yes, I remember. He had, I think the story was that he had a school assignment where he had to recite as many inspirational quotes.
He had an undergrad thesis where he had to recite, a certain number of quotes, right?
And these were all inspirational quotes. I'm sure that we could get in touch with him and he would probably love to speak with us. Even though he is not a graduate student, he knows his philosophy, so you can trust what he says.
I mean, most philosophy undergrads are training to be grad students. They're pretty close to it. They might not want to pursue that goal at the end of the day, but they're still thinking and they're using their mind to think thoughts. And is that not what life is about at the end of the day?
Exactly.
All right, nice. I think we can call this one. This was a great episode, and I think the fans will be looking forward to our next one when we have some guests. We might do, just the two of us. We might change it up. A lot of things are in the future. Stay tuned. All right, My Protein. Give me an email. Shoot me a phone call. Do whatever you want. I want your money. All right. Thank you.